The
This
Facebook
is
page, right?
live.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
this is
We are
live.
Alright, yes,
live.
we're live.
Yeah.
Great. Welcome to our very first Facebook Live. We don't have a viewer. Should we wait until we have a viewer?
We wait until,
Do we wait
You know,
until we have a viewer?
ba't
I
laging
think
tayo
we should start.
nag-aantay, Charot?
Okay. So what are we going to talk about today? All right, guys. First of all, I want to say welcome to our very first live broadcast of DR5. We know it's risky and we been bashed for cursing on camera before, but like we thought it's gonna be more fun. So to stream it live, yes, and open it to your comments, yes. So before we start, our topic is about student politicians, about how what are the outcomes of the previous elections and like the latest developments in student politics in general. So before I begin, I would like to read my official statement I put here.
Wow.
Okay. So first of all, we would like to point out that anything said here are usually argued beyond our own personal beliefs. So we would like everyone to take it as we're just exploring that idea. We don't necessarily think it is true, but if it makes sense, we're gonna say it, right? So why
Yeah.
am I saying that? All right, I'm saying that because profs have made statements regarding this issue, which makes this more controversial than it actually is. Because when profs get involved in student politics, their voice is more powerful than ours due to punitive backing coming from the university. So, what we'll try to do here is try to be critical without being tactless. I hope you enjoy this episode because there's only three reasons why we're doing this. First and most important reason is because it's fun. We enjoy these things. Second, there are some things that need to be said, and lastly, no one else is willing to say that. So we will be the ones who will be saying these things. So before we start, I want to introduce everyone to our latest our guest, not Drew. Say hi, not Drew. Hi. Okay. So and as usual, you have me, Billy. Then you have Java, Vance, Christopher, and Denise. Okay. So without further ado, let's go to our first screenshot. Right.
What's the screen? Oh,
What do we?
what are you showing?
Okay. Basically, I'm gonna show a screenshot of a post coming from DFW. Okay. So it says you. So SLG has special elections and SEM can appoint anyone. I'm sorry, but this year's USG is trash. All right,
What
guys.
happened there?
Wait.
Okay, what
So
happened here is a good
STM
question.
has a they appointed a person for STM.
Yeah. So basically, there wasn't a candidate coming from both parties, I think, for the recent elections. So that means there are two failures of elections, and by virtue of EO1, uh, School of Communications can appoint someone of their choosing, right? Okay. I think this will clarify it if we move to the next one. This is an official statement coming from Comelec uh, regarding
So that.
regarding the recent election. So there were internal elections. Prior to the election, someone else was appointed as a rep for student communication, and someone became president of the USG, and someone resigned. Okay, so that's actually why we're gonna have special elections for SLG. Okay, first of all, I want to get a, get an idea of why you guys think this person who like posted this on DFW would think that like USG is trash, right? For doing this, for having to appoint someone and for having to have special elections for like a school, right? Let's start with that. Why do you think a person, right? I wouldn't say it's majority because it's just one post, right? A person would think that, well, the USG is doomed because of these two reasons, just because of these two reasons. Java, let's start with you. Why do you think someone would think that?
Um, Maybe because they think, I don't know, like if people don't vote or I don't know, if people don't run, maybe there shouldn't be a person to represent them, and maybe they think that just appointing someone is against representation to begin with. Probably.
Okay. So you're saying it's because like, oh, you ran and then you resigned, then it's disappointing for the people, therefore the USG is trash. Is that what you're saying?
Wait, I don't think I get the question. Wait. So
No, I'm trying to like get someone to explain why someone would think this way, right? Why would someone think that the USG is trash just because we had to appoint someone for SEM and then we have to have special elections for SLG?
If I may,
Yes, go ahead.
I think it's a statement that there's an impression of degeneration in terms of our democratic procedures. It shows, maybe to this person, that our processes of election are a joke, are a complete joke. It's a statement that says that we can't even have legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate representatives anymore. We can't have them be chosen by people. So now we have to resort to having it
By
chosen by a select group
75%
of
of
people.
people.
Yeah. So it's possible that it's a statement against our current electoral procedures and against, say, malpractices that they may have seen with regards to its execution. I can say for sure, of course, I'm not this person.
Okay, so you're saying that, well, it seems that like our institutions have failed us, right? But like, to be fair, they made efforts to get some people into positions of power. Like for example, we had the oh, it wasn't a referendum. It was just an amendment. They amended the constitution, right, to remove the voting quota, right? So those are efforts.
No, it was an amendment to the Omnibus Code, Election Omnibus Code.
Okay, I have no idea what that means, but like, thanks for the clarification. Right,
Yeah.
I'm pretty dumb. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, very accurate stuff. Yeah, but like, they tried. It's just that maybe the situations didn't favor them, right? That doesn't mean that like they suck or anything, right?
Billy, can I add?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Kasi expanding on the idea of the person thinking that this batch's USG is trash, let's try to dissect what trash is, right? So, I'm sorry, but
Let's define terms.
yeah,
Okay, characterization.
let's start with trash. Okay, let's start with trash. Okay, why would anyone think of them as trash? They're clearly human beings or whatever. But here's the point. Okay, if you can get into any position of power and back out of it immediately, I think that merits it as trash because obviously you've made so many campaign promises and so many platforms and so much preparation and you bothered so many people in the process and you're gonna say that I'm backing out, I'm chickening out of this because I can't deliver for some vague reason, then I think it merits her to be called trash. Okay? Or like, but when we talk about the idea of the other SEM person being called like trash, I don't think it's a direct hit to like the SEM person per se, but rather the procedure. But like on the other side of the spectrum, I think it can be merited as that. I mean, puro
didn't the
pangako
person
eh.
say that USG is trash, not a certain person's trash?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the statement.
Yeah, so
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's USG who should be. I don't think USG is trash because of
So you think the USG is a victim for this shenanigans, right? Like they had nothing to do with it. It just happened that like the
yeah.
incumbent, like
I mean
our
USG is
of
composed
the
of people.
institutions.
I don't think that the idea of a USG is trash.
Okay, coming from a previous USG officer, I wanna get your insight of like, hi Drew, how
Hi.
trashy is the USG? No, just kidding.
What was that?
I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Right? Okay, so hi Drew, can you give us like an insight of like maybe what do you think of this current situation that the USG is in?
What? You lagged. Sorry,
Yeah,
you
which is
lagged.
what?
What's the question? You
Why do you,
lagged.
No, I mean the current USG, right, had to appoint
Yeah.
someone, right? And despite having someone
Okay.
win as an SLG rep, they had to they had to uh declare that there will be a special elections, right? So
Okay.
we're supposed to have a full lineup, but like someone resigned, right? So what does that say about the USG? Or do you think it says nothing about the USG whatsoever?
Am I back? Wait, sorry, my internet shit. Oops.
No, I mean,
Oh,
Relatable mood.
my internet's bad.
okay.
Sorry. What?
I want you to comment on the situation of the USG.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you think
Okay.
of it?
Someone resigned. Um, and someone else got appointed. Now they're
Yes.
holding special elections for the person who resigned.
Who
Sorry.
resigned?
No, no,
Yes.
no, 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 no. Oh wait, yeah. Correct,
Yeah,
correct, correct.
correct, correct.
Fill the seat.
Okay, go.
Because
Yeah,
earlier
fill in.
she said, okay, never mind, never mind.
It's correct. That's correct. It's a messy situation. We all agree. But do you think it says
It is.
something about the USG?
Parang do people still want to be USG? Um, I don't know, cause like just getting to the position is already hard. Um, getting getting people to vote is already hard. And even I think performing your duties would warrant more work. Um, but then there are people who still want to go for it, so I think that's good on them. But then, what I think the USG is okay, but then the people who would the student body itself, they don't really, I think, see what's the point. So
Okay,
a lot
so
of things are just happening like above there, but not in the body mismo.
okay,
Like
so
a
you
lot of
think
yeah.
the sentiments are coming from the detachment of the actual USG, from the people who they purport to represent. Like, oh, they don't really represent us. They're all about politics. Therefore, they are trash. Do you think that's the
Therefore, they
sentiment?
are trash. I
Okay, okay, fine, fine. Let's go here. Do you think that is accurate? That
that
the USG is detached from the people they're trying to serve?
that the USG is detached to the people they're trying to serve. In a way,
Okay, in what way?
because I think we come from different schools that would no. Am I back? This is like me playing Minecraft Realms. I keep getting
Okay,
disconnected.
Yeah, we hear you.
okay. Let's
Okay.
hear from
So where
someone
was
else.
I? I was saying each it's like fudge. I said fudge.
No, you're here.
All right. Okay, fine. While you sort out your internet, let's talk to Java. Java, do you believe that the USG
Hello.
is detached from the
Sorry.
people they're trying to serve?
Do I
Java,
think the USD is?
detached from the people they're trying to serve.
I don't think so. I mean, they're not like they're not like in a separate place. They're still in the school. They still go to class. They still interact with the students. I think they think that like anything in being a USG officer. Not that I know what it feels like. Like I know that they're still students. So how can they be so detached? They still interact with the same people every day. I think that they're still experiencing UA&P the same way we all do. Except they have a position in which they can speak out.
Okay,
So,
so you think at this point they still represent the student body?
well, as in the current USG,
Yeah, the current USG members.
I don't know. I don't know them. I mean, I'm not.
Same.
What about you, Denise? Like based on this current situation, would you say that the current USP, the incumbents, represent the student body?
Well, they're duly elected, so I think for the most part they are. legitimate representatives. But with regard to their interests, I'm not sure if they really do want to serve the university. But I mean, it's up to them. They still have to prove that to us. Promises are one thing, but delivering them is another. But before like proceed, let's shout out to our viewers.
Okay, so first time we're going live. Shout out to
So
like
shout out to
Peter.
Al,
Who's
Bolo,
viewing us? Do we know?
Sophia, Camille.
A shout
Well,
out to my
Shout out
my
friend.
to
boyfriend.
Bolo
Hi,
Season
Rap.
as well.
Bolo has a question. Bolo said, "Do you think some student council members are snobs after they win an election?" I think that's more of like rhetorical question, right? I don't think it needs an answer. Okay, but like let's move on. Let's move on to the next screenshot. Alright, let's move on to the next screenshot. Alright, share screen. Uh, alright. Okay. Hey, did her dirty. Damn, man. I did not expect that kind of treatment from them. All right. Okay. So here's what happened. Okay. So here's what happened. Uh, based on based on like what the people who were inside there told me, right? They said, well, there was an election held, right, and someone else was elected president, right? And I feel like what this post is trying to insinuate is that the party that the person was serving or she was serving was actually colluded to get someone else into that position. I think that's what it's trying to say, right? And
Are you
like,
implying a conspiracy?
okay, we'll go into whether or not this is accurate, right? But like, I'll go into like the details of the chismis because this is chismis completely. We don't
Oh
want to
my
write it
god.
into
I
factual
can't
point.
believe. Okay.
Like, all right. Okay, first question. First question, right? Do we care? Like, do you think the student body cares about whether or not they concluded to like get someone else get someone in a particular position? I think this ties back to the point of like whether the USG is detached from the student body or not. Like, obviously, we bear the burden of not having a representative, right? So, do you think the students care about like what happens in the back room of this negotiations? Assuming that there's a back room, right? First of all, whether or not there's a back room, do we care? Do you think the students care?
I think that students care to the extent that if they vote for a representative, they expect to be represented by that representative. And if that holding office or representing them is contingent on being a certain position, then maybe the goal wasn't to represent the people. Maybe the goal was to get a certain position. And if that position wasn't attained, drop the representation. And think about what you will about that. But that's the way I see it.
But like, don't you think a person who works hard, right, is competent, right, and was duly elected based on the rules that was set in front of her, right? Don't you think she deserves a position that she worked hard for? Don't you think it's deserving of some merit to the point uh that she should be given the position that she wants? Don't you think that's possible?
But didn't the
But
other
there's the
representative also want a certain position? What makes one representative more deserving than another? How do you
Here,
quantify
here.
that?
What are our
Here,
standards?
here.
Okay, so
It's
you all like
reasonable
really
naman,
agree
di
on
ba?
that.
Kasi,
Yeah.
because you get positions in USG after you get elected into USG, and you vote amongst yourselves, di ba? So,
Yeah, but like, okay, we assume that like this candidate is better than everyone. Let's assume that. Do you think, okay, we can objectively say, let's assume this is an assumption. if we say that this person is best for that position compared to everyone else, do you think
Let's use the
she?
term competent.
Yeah, let's assume that she's competent. Do you think she is entitled to that position?
No.
No,
Entitled is
no,
a
Ideally,
big
no.
word.
ideally she
Um,
will get the position, but it but in a world where people can choose who to place in that position, she won't always get what she wants. I mean, a lot of politicians do it too. Like they're overqualified for the post, but they don't get the post. So, I mean, she was voted by the student body. So, what's her fuss, diba?
Yeah, but like, don't you think that's like promoting traditional politics in which popularity is the only thing that matters, and it doesn't matter if you're competent as long as like someone else is more popular than you or more likable than you, right? Don't you
that's a
think those?
necessary evil. That's a necessary evil of any democratic institution. People are gullible. That's the basic. That's a given. So, oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can. So I'm waiting for you
Yeah.
to
Okay. Okay.
explain what you're saying right now.
Yeah. Because look, think about it this way. There's always going to be a backroom discussion. There's always going to be inner party, inter party machinations behind closed doors. That's a given in politics, even at the student body or even at the national or international level. The question that you're trying to raise here is a matter of competency. Therefore, in politics, if you want to achieve something, if you want to prove that you are competent, you don't just do it in the administrative sense, you have to do it in the politicking sense. It's a necessary evil for you to have to suck it up to some people and have to make some very, very well placed smiles here, there, so to speak.
Yeah, but
It's
like
the
You need
trademark
to
of an
lobby.
effective politician.
yeah, but it promotes a negative aspect of politics, don't you think? Right?
Yeah,
Isn't
I
it
agree with you.
unfair?
I don't like it, but that's the reality we have to
Bola
work
has a
with.
question. But that's
Yeah,
Paul
hold
has
fine.
a
on.
question.
How do we lessen
How
those
do we
necessary
let?
evils?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, and
How do we
shout
lessen
out to
these things?
Evan,
That's true.
apparently.
That's true.
Shout out.
Shout out to Evan and other viewers. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. So please like, subscribe. Thanks.
We
Okay,
have
so we're on
20
the topic
My
of
viewers.
fish.
necessary evils, right?
Hello. So,
Okay,
aw.
we're on the topic of necessary evil. So we assume, okay, let's assume that there are backroom politics that is going on, right? How do we reduce this without removing the value of representation and participation that the voting mechanism, right, gives us? Because that's basically what the post was asking for, right? It's like, well, this person deserved it. Why don't you give it to her? And the answer is, well, because people need to vote, right? And like their opinion matters, right? So why do you think? What do you think could have been done to like prevent that like necessary evil?
Well, there's always a trade-off to that.
Yes.
So, if you want a level of competency, then if you, as a, I don't know, if the referendum might arise again, and people will agree that there will be certain qualifications for you to become president, or I mean, extra qualifications for you to become president, vice, etc. Maybe that's a solution, but that also gives a trade off of like the idea of having a democracy, the freedom to choose, regardless of the status. So maybe you could put at least 2 years of experience being ahead of this organization or that. If the student body approves that, then maybe your idea of competency could be, yeah, solved.
Right? Does everyone agree with that? But like, what if we contextualize it in the context of COVID, right? It's like where it's so much harder. Yeah, so much harder to get elected. Come on, guys. Like people won't come out to vote. Like Comelec did this thing, which is they removed the quota, right? To make it easier for people to get elected. So are you saying that it goes against the whole competency requirement for for the USG? Does it directly oppose that? Because you're telling me that, like we should make it harder for people to get elected because we're adding extra, I would say, uh, conditions, right? But like in the context of COVID, we can't achieve that, right? Because we need to have a representative like that.
Maybe you can tell us who you want to answer, Billy, para hindi kami nakatayo lang dito
Okay,
naghihintay.
let's review. Let's review. Kasi I was reviewing. I'm sorry.
Wait,
Right.
Okay,
why is
okay.
it about? Wait, I have a question. Why is it about competency at this point? They haven't exactly done anything.
I think the question's now on voting, isn't it?
Yeah, so more representation.
Well,
Not
because it the post assumes that like the person deserves it. So we have to like
Okay.
buy into like whatever they're saying that okay, let's assume that this person deserves it because she's competent, right? Yeah, so that's the assumption. We're not saying necessarily that it's true or untrue. We just assume it based on like what the post said.
I think the assumption should be that all of the USG members, the ones who are elected, they're all competent because they already met the standards of the school, and it's up to them how to organize themselves. That's how it works, right? Like,
Yeah. It's like
No, but I
so
think I
polar
think Billy is
environment.
trying to say that some candidates are quote unquote more competent than others. And therefore, these individuals who are quote unquote more competent deserve these positions more. I think what he's trying to ask is how do we make sure that these people who are more competent get into positions of power given that we are in the context of a pandemic? Is that correct, Billy?
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you for framing it very
well, I
well.
think there's okay. I don't think there's any way to do that. You're gonna have to remove voting altogether and just pick out the person who fits all the things in your checklist because you're not gonna find the perfect individual who not only is the best at everything but also gets the votes.
Here.
That's how voting works. So I don't think
So
it's like what you're
do
asking
you
for.
think it's a necessary trade off for the value of democracy?
That's
Yeah.
what That's what Denise said
And everyone
earlier,
agrees about that.
basically.
Like no, okay. All right, fine. Then let's move on to the next screenshot. Because I feel like
So
Yeah, online voting does exist, Bolo.
yeah, we
Clarification.
use online
We
voting
did that
this
in
time.
the recent one.
We had online
yeah, so
voting the
shouldn't
last
it
time.
be easier to vote because it's online now?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like people have other priorities, man. Like you gotta
Or
incentive.
maybe they don't have internet or yeah.
True, it's busy.
Christopher, Christopher, you'll be a great with Christopher.
If they don't have internet, how are they doing classes? Oh, sorry.
I mean,
Oh man,
Okay.
it's so
All
small.
right. So this is a statement. This is a statement coming from the previous president of Kasanga. Right? I'll read it out, like because I like reading. I do not speak on behalf of the party anymore since I stepped down from my position in respect to succession, but I think they express the same sentiments. As the previous president of Kasanga, one thing is certain: Kasanga is founded on the principle of Awang Gawa, a principle of outright self-giving with no expectations of rewards or titles. We value service above else. There was no marching orders from Kasanga to vote for a particular president during my term. The choice of presidency was a product of free will of both Kasanga candidates and Anima candidates, since the direction of the USG alone is not determined by one person. It is determined by a collective of representatives. As I've repeated myself over and over again, to the slate of my term, if you can't serve without an office, then you are unworthy of one. Anyone who fails to see this is undeserving of any public office. Service should be above all else, not positions. However, as the president of the state, I take full accountability of the actions of our recently resigned USG elect, as I was the one in charge of choosing the candidates and training them. But my stand still remains all the same. Service comes first, politics come last. All right. So in fairness, right. First of all, I sense some regret in the decision that he made, right? Like he doesn't think that uh he doesn't think that the decision he made before of choosing this particular person was correct, right? And because of that, he made this statement that says, well, if you can't serve without the proper office, then you're not right for that office after all. So, do you guys think it's it's true that like that you don't need an office in order to serve?
You don't need
Yes,
an office.
definitely.
Yeah, sure.
I know a lot of people
At
who
some point, you
help
will.
the school without being
Billy, you
elected.
have to direct who should speak first, so we don't
Yeah.
talk at the same time.
You know, just
Again.
just answer.
You have to direct the conversation.
Yeah, but then if we
Your
answer all at the
suggestion.
same time, it's gonna be messy.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. What about this, right? Not a lot of people wants to be USG, right?
Here,
So
here.
does that mean like a lot of people, like not a lot of people wants to serve?
Not a lot of people wants to
No.
be
Not
Guys,
at
you
necessarily.
guys are
USG. Not
That's a
necessarily they don't want to
false
serve.
right?
Whoever heard of not
It
being
is
part of the
necessary for you.
USG equates to not wanting to serve.
No, I'm just saying that like it's hard to serve when you don't have, first of all, the legitimacy to serve. Like if you want to say organize people in order to
Yeah.
to serve someone, right? You need some level
Mhm.
of legitimacy, and like in the context of a school or a university, that means you need the backing of the university itself through the student organizations, right? So therefore, it's very difficult to serve without an office, right? It's not necessarily true that everyone can serve without an office, right? Especially in the context of the university. So do you think that in this condition, right, the candidate absolutely needed that office? Because where else would she get the legitimacy that she needs, right? Except for the office that like provides that legitimacy.
Okay.
Quote unquote.
Firstly, I think it's
Go.
a question. I think it's a question of what position she wanted to have in the first place. Like if you're asking a question of does she need an office, okay, fine, maybe she needed to be USG in order for her to be able to implement a few policies here and there. But the question of whether or not she needed to be a president just for those policies to push through is still at the backbone of all of this, because like you can be USG and they can support the policies you're trying to forward. Let's cite like for instance her continuity project or like her transparency projects. Transparency especially, but when she talked about transparency, it's linking or like disseminating information from like the USG to the student body. That would be great, right? And I think she was at least able to achieve some of that when you talk about the previous projects she had in the past year. Like for instance, the research committee, still debatable, but the point is, when talking about certain projects, I think she does need USG help, but the question of whether or not she needs the presidency is the bigger question, and I don't think she needs it just for her to forward a few of those projects.
Okay. In
Here,
If you were
here.
in her position, right? If you were in her position, what would you have done? Like
If I
sorry.
wasn't given the position
Because
I wanted in USG, is
Yeah.
that's the question basically, right?
Okay.
I need water.
I think I don't know. You can't always get what you want.
Yeah, but like
And
that's what
like,
she wants. It's what she needs to be able to
oh,
serve.
she
That's the
needs
argument.
it. She needs it.
She specifically mentioned that she cannot achieve her campaign promises if she does not get this particular position, which is
We'll
why
get
she
there. We'll
quote
get there.
unquote cannot
Right?
serve.
I made it so that we can see the other side of this, right? But before we go into that, I want to point out the fact that Wise admitted to having made a mistake. Basically, right? That's the tone of the post, right? Because like, oh, we thought this person embodied the values of our party, and I was the one who made the decision, right? So I feel like it was a disservice to my party, right? Because like I chose a person who doesn't uphold these values, right? Okay, so
What
do you
values?
values of the party, okay, which
Oh,
is like
okay, okay,
kapwa, service and
okay.
everything. Okay, so so here's the question, right? How accountable do you think the student institutions are to this particular mess?
Here
Java.
we go.
I don't think they're very accountable because
Yeah,
in the end, you're still voting in a person. In the end, it's about that person, not the party. The party
it's not.
helps. The party, yeah. Tell him, Drew. But yeah, it's really the person.
I think it's
I don't
not
think.
um uh not getting wait. I think it's not anyone else's fault, but the people who voted in USG. That's why you didn't get the position. So I don't think it's should be the party's fault or at least anyone's fault because it was an internal thing.
All right. How about this? Let's
I think what
assume that
Billy's trying to say. I think what
we're gonna
Billy's trying to
assume.
say
Yeah,
here. Yeah. We're gonna assume that these institutions are enabled her to created this environment where
Oh,
she got it in her head that she needs these particular things in order to achieve these particular things.
oh,
Basically,
okay.
environmental conditioning.
So
yeah.
like
Like for
You're
example,
needing to structure your question
by
better.
give by getting these other people into position, that means she'd get to the top,
yeah, exactly.
basically.
Right.
But then she forgot that people have free will. Is that
No, I mean my point is that
Yeah,
a lot of what transpired in the previous elections is controversial, right? There are some special powers nuances that was introduced so that it's easier to get people to be elected, right? And we can see the value of that, right? But the problem now is you have an officer who basically in my estimation, right, I'm not sure what she's thinking, right? But like based on the action, I could say that the position was taken for granted. It was taken that the presidency is up to grabs and it goes to anyone who would want it, right? Just like the position of being a rep, right? Because anyone who basically ran unopposed basically won, as we saw in the election. Even though there's a strong opposition, especially to this particular candidate, we have 43 abstain against 57 pro, right? It's very easy to get elected, right? So I'm saying that you lower the barrier to entry for like this kind of mentality. I wouldn't say that it's the person itself. I would say that the institutions that facilitated this particular election made it seem like this is the mentality that candidates are supposed to have, that they are entitled to the positions that they're going to get, right? So don't you think there should be an accountability that is, I would say, that is accepted by these particular institutions, and they should go out and apologize for having made this particular like environment, right? Because it
Are
seems
you
like
are you asking us if are you telling us that we should hold these institutions accountable because the power got to her head?
no, well,
Just a
yes,
simple
yes,
response.
partly. Okay,
As
why?
a bit-
Because I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Oh my
Right? Okay, hang on that. All right, because I want to say that it's not entirely her fault, right? Because first of all, it wasn't in the omnibus code. There were amendments made, right? It made it easier for her to get there, right? And when she got there, and she didn't go all the way, then she felt cheated. I feel like that's where the sentiments is coming from, right? So don't you think there is some accountability to be put onto these student institutions that allow this particular behavior, right?
Okay. Okay. So I'd like to add some of that. Firstly, it's not really in the handbook either that there are term limits to these certain candidates so they can rerun for certain positions. And if I've learned anything from my majors class on the first day, shout out to my prof. Politicians should be changed, like because they could spoil like diapers, something along those lines.
oh,
But the
Why?
point is, okay, but
I
the
did
point
do.
here is okay, going back. Um, when you foster that kind of environment in which you don't really have term limits for these candidates, when you don't when you let these people just run rampantly and repetitively, like maybe you know what, next term baka ako na yung president, etc. You create that kind of mindset because you don't really give them just that one shot na okay,
It's like
if ever
investing already.
like if ever I win as rep in my school, I'm going to do my best. That's the kind of mentality we want to foster, but unfortunately don't get because we don't have these limits to terms. Like we don't get that idea that we only have one shot at these things and not necessary. And yeah, as what Drew said, it becomes an investment. Okay, fine. I'm a better USG rep na eh. I mean, I accomplished so much last year na eh. Why can't I be president? You're all bullying me for this, that. And yeah, it becomes like that because like you're making this person invest and over for these positions. So it creates that toxic mentality.
I just want to
Drew,
point out
Drew,
the other
wait.
side.
Okay, go, go,
Yeah.
go, go.
Let's hear Java first. Let's hear
The
Java.
other
Okay.
side to that
Okay, go,
argument,
Java, go.
you want progress, right? You want things to get better. And being able to have another term lets you pick up off where you left off and make things better. And that's something you can't do if you replace it every time because the new people won't necessarily build on what you built. So, they might even tear it down and then build something else, and then it's a cycle. So, yeah, just pointing that out. There is benefit to having people run again.
Okay.
I have a question for Drew.
Yeah, but
Oh my god.
okay.
Go na.
Okay. I will, continuity is great, like having the same people do it all over again, ganyan. But then, how can we achieve like a synthesis if there's no one like saying what's missing? Like, I don't know if you guys know, like, I'm gonna go into like philosophy now.
All right.
I hope if anyone's read Hegel,
Which
like his three synthesis, thesis, antithesis. Like the only way to
yeah.
get synthesis is to have an antithesis to your thesis. So and that
Volume
synthesis
yang
becomes a thesis and then an antithesis. So how can we move forward if there's no antithesis?
All right.
Pointing
Moving
out.
forward.
Opposition.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
What do you think? Right. Because like in my opinion, right? In my opinion, no.
Yes,
Not
Billy,
really
you have
my
so many
opinion.
opinions.
Here's an idea, right? Here's an idea. Okay? Here's an idea. What if the institutions just prevented her from like ever, achieving that without having to go through the proper channel? Right? Like
If I wanna ask something. Like I wanna ask Drew this. It's is there actually a culture of re-election in USG? Because from what I know, everyone who gets elected
Honestly?
once doesn't run again.
Well, everyone who runs for USG is at least like the third year now, fourth year now. So it's basically their last year. I haven't heard of anyone who got re-elected.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, but like
so,
it's not forbidden.
Yeah, it's not forbidden.
yeah, but that's the point. That's the point, right? Billy is Billy is trying to tell us that these institutions basically enabled her to
Yes.
have this idea that I can be re-elected because that's how I can ensure continuity, right?
Right.
But
Right.
if you're gonna ask someone who's been in the USG, that's not a culture. That's not an informal
Yeah, but
agreement
like okay.
that once you run, you don't run again. She's an outlier.
Okay, what does Denise think? Right? Denise, what do you think?
Denise,
You've
go.
been
Ikaw na lang din nagsalita.
Unless it's on paper, it means nothing. That's just it.
Oh.
That's the sad reality.
Spoken like a lawyer.
Right? Why don't we put it on
can I add
paper?
to that too? Can I add?
Yes, go ahead.
Marcos was also an outlier.
Okay,
Wow.
okay.
So the point,
Wow.
the point here is
Hard.
When the parents are-
fine.
you can go there.
We do have
You
okay.
can go there.
Okay, wait. Okay. Hold on. I think that if,
My
okay,
name is
we
not
can-
Drew.
my name. Okay. I think that when you talk about term limits, okay, fine. You can have a certain maybe 2 years. You can re-elect this person, but only to that extent, so that you can see certain projects happen. Because we do consider that the USG is fairly young, and it doesn't have a lot of things going on yet, like, with foundation and everything. In fact, you look at its constitution, it's pretty lacking. But at the same time, we can't really compromise the idea of democracy here, or like the idea of like these posts being tainted just because someone runs. You get my point.
Marcos was done dirty. Shout out to Rafa Andrada. Alright. Okay. All
Boyfriend ko
right.
yan.
I get that, right? But like, I wanna point out what Denise said. It's not like, it doesn't mean anything if it's not put on paper. So why don't we put on paper? Because like, from my perspective, the things that we put on paper are actually highly abusable, right? Like for example, EO1. There's no safety net to prevent like anyone from like influencing the decision of the school, like of the home school, right? Like I've heard of someone in the USG who made the GC and then like endorsed someone to be appointed there, right? But like, yeah, see, but like, if we put on paper that like, oh, only party that comments on this should be like sanctioned or like restricted from doing so, or like for example, if we say that, oh, if any party, I would say, uh creates an allegation of like a conspiracy theory behind like to attack the legitimacy of any particular institution, then that person will be sanctioned. Then it will discourage people from doing all this bad behavior, right? So why don't we put this on paper and like have all the checks and balances in place so that like people don't behave this way, like people don't think that they can do anything they want and be in the position of power, and then so when they don't get what they want, they will throw a tantrum, right? So I feel like to my how I see it, the person just took advantage of all the opportunities given to her. What do you think about that?
You lost me.
I lost
Tantrum.
you.
Okay, you were at
You
tantrum.
got me back in tantrum. Yeah, same.
Yeah, you
Yeah, I
got
was at tantrum, and then you were like, "What was the question?"
Oh,
Yeah, what was the question?
Wait, I
okay.
don't
Throwing
think
a
Billy was
tantrum. No,
asking
I'm saying
something. He was just
from my
saying.
perspective, this is what I see. All right, the person was just taking advantage of all the opportunities given to her. Why? Because it's on paper, it's allowed, right? So
It's
I
there.
think the problem is not with the person, but with the rules of the game. So we need to change the rules, not necessarily the person, right? Because like,
Okay,
if the rules are different, the person will be able to act this way anyway.
but here's the problem with trying to change the rules, right? Even the USG's power is pretty limited. They do have policies they want to enforce and want to push forward in terms of like projects. The reason why there are a lot of projects that don't really push through is because there's another higher body that does technically approve of these things. They have a higher hand than USG. So I think that when it comes to like enforcing these rules, that, oh, why not have safeguards for A, B, C, and D? Well, it ultimately boils down to what the school admin would say, or the school admin's judgment, which makes it harder for us to actually push forward these things. Most especially if, for instance, maybe they want a certain candidate, or like they favor a certain candidate because they think this certain candidate is qualified.
Okay, so you're saying that, well, the students can't necessarily do whatever they want because like someone higher than them will prevent them from doing so. But
Yeah.
like, if we contextualize it to the previous elections, right? I feel like the students were able to freely do what they want, right? Like removal of the quota, right? It seems very unreasonable. Like at least have that 20%, right? Maybe like do some statistics thingamajigs, right? But it was able to push through because like the students wanted it, right? And there's even like a previous post in DFW that claims that, well, profs are manipulating the student organizations, which is obviously absolutely ridiculous, right? It's laughable to the extent that like, why would they even like manipulate these things, right? So in my opinion, I feel like the students in power need to step up and put all these checks and balances in place.
I think that there's also another component towards the balancing of political individuals. It's not formal rules are great and all. They have a sense of grounding. They have a sense of uh, physicalness. That if you do something wrong, there's going to be a tangible repercussion. But I think we're missing a very important component with regards to reining in the behavior of political individuals. And I think that's the informal. I agree with to an extent with Denise when she said that if it's not written down on paper, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, not everything that with regards to politics is necessarily written down. Public opinion isn't written down, and you need to cater to how people perceive you. And that's a very important part because if you look at the current issue, outrage is a very, very powerful tool with regards to shaping people's actions and their opinions. I think that that when I ask the question that do we have a culture of re-election, it already manifested itself in the outrage that happened when this particular individual announced that she was going to run again. There was already a lot of outrage from that point alone. I'm not gonna say who were the people who made who was
The
outraged, but
outrage that.
yeah, there was outrage. I'm not gonna deny that.
There was an
But
outrage.
there was
Where's the outrage?
outrage, rage.
Okay.
And
Okay. Wait, are things transparent with the USD? Bolo, my guys, asking the right questions. Guys, do you think the USD is transparent?
no,
No. Why?
there's someone higher up than them who is censoring everything they say. There is an higher up to each and every one of us who is censoring what we can say. Are you
I agree
telling me
with
we're
that.
being
I mean,
transparent?
we can
Wait,
say
wait,
whose name. We can just say anything.
But we have to say that we
Hello.
agree that it's for the common good. Right, guys? Right? Censorship is
UA,
good
okay.
for
We
the
can
common good.
just say anything.
Hello,
Okay,
China.
fine. I'll give you an example as to why the USD is not that transparent. Right? Because we don't know what's really going on. Because they released their statements late. I feel like who released the information about the elections and the resignation, right? It was leaked. It was leaked. It didn't go through the proper channel.
Leaked?
It was leaked. It was really. It
Really?
was leaked. Yeah, it was
Oops, I
leaked.
see.
Wow.
I
Right?
know
It
who
wasn't.
leaked it.
It wasn't announced immediately after. Right? There was some thought that was put before. Like I agree that like there should be some level of thought before you announce something. But like if it's just like a matter of fact, like oh this person became a president, oh this person resigned, just declare it, right? All this like all this I would say smoke screen kind of makes it seem like there's something fishy going on in the background, right? Like who would even think of alleging that there's a conspiracy between like K and like among K if this information was like released earlier, right? So you get what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like if they're doing some back channel things in selecting their candidates or like in during their uh their elections or like whatnot, they should just release it, right? Just release it and like don't try to twist the information to frame the information in a manner that like would promote your status because at the end of the day they serve the people, right? Do you guys agree with me here? Come on, right?
Java, what's your opinion on transparency in the in student politics?
Um, I don't know. It depends on like what do you want to know? Like from the USG, what exactly do you want to know that you think people don't know yet?
Wait, what? You were asking me. Okay,
Yeah. So like
Billy, what do you want to
yeah.
know from the USG?
Do I want to know from the USG? I want to know how they make decisions. I want to know how the decisions were made. Who voted for what? Who suggested what? Who wrote what? I know that like there's some level of like transparency when it comes to that comes to it, but I feel like it's not enough, right? If
Well,
they
Not
want to
true.
claim, if they want to
I
claim,
don't think allowed.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
my
Oh,
opinion,
Drew is an insider. Drew,
Denise, you
tell
were
us.
saying something?
Tell us.
Yeah,
Or
or
What
is
is
it
there's
what
another?
like a
like
matter of like is it an informal matter that you don't really discuss how you arrived at these decisions, or is there a rule preventing you from disclosing that?
I think what Billy's asking
Uh,
is that we should do.
oh,
I think Billy's asking us to remove these rules that are preventing us from
knowing?
releasing every and all information. All right,
from
Billy.
leaking? So there won't be leakage. It will just
So
be transparency. Come on,
wait,
Drew.
wait,
Tell us,
wait.
Drew.
So the
Boom.
Are
question,
there rules or
what's
is
the
it an informal
question?
thing? Are there rules preventing you from like releasing information regarding how you make decisions? Or is it an informal thing that you guys don't feel like releasing this information?
What kind of information?
Like how you
exactly.
arrive at decisions.
Like
Parang yung
what?
election ng president ganun.
These
Oh,
shadowy
I think
dealing.
I don't think there's any rule that, or I don't think there's nothing, or there's something preventing us from saying na, oh, we voted majority for this person to be president, and then I think it's in the, if I'm not mistaken, it's in the handbook where the um constitution is like, as a group we're supposed to come together and vote for the officers nga and all that. But then I don't know. I think we just go for it and then announce now, oh, these are our positions. But we don't really say, nah, this is how we came to the decision.
Can I
So I
add
yeah.
something?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
makes
Go.
sense. Right?
So
Java wants
transparency, I think it's important, but I don't think it's so much of a problem unless something super important is being kept from you. Like we don't. I mean, do you exactly need to know how the discussion went? Do you need like, but you do need to know where your funds are going, or if a certain like, you get what I mean. There's things that are more important to know, and things that are less important to know. We don't need to
Okay,
burn
I'll
how
ground
every.
the whole transparency thing regarding decision making after I shout out to Nikki Tuason. Shout out to Nikki Tuason. Right. So first first of all, right, there are conspiracy theories, right? Like absolutely ridiculous conspiracy theories going around the internet saying there are backdoor channels about these decision makings, right? Like for example, the allegation about like the profs manipulating student politics, right? If if the student body, if the USG proposes something and the mentor rejects it, right? I don't know. They should release why it's rejected or if it's rejected altogether. I'm not really sure whether it's like yeah because you don't know whether something was rejected or not, right? You don't know how the projects was developed. What if the project was actually for the interest of the student body, but like we had to like make it a weaker stat so that it's more fundable basically, right? But like we don't really know where the funds will come from, all that stuff. I feel like the decision making of the USG should be released to the student body. What do you
I
think?
think I think Billy's opinion about transparency stems from his outrage that we don't really know what's going on during
Exactly.
for the current
Who knows
issue.
what's going on, guys?
Uh,
It's like right. That's why the all these like for example, it took a while before the Comelec released the outcomes of the elections. Right. I already knew who was elected and who resigned and when and where. Right. What about everyone else who don't have friends?
Who now?
Okay. What do you guys think?
Denise, you have an opinion?
Well,
Are
I
you
mean,
part
I
of this
couldn't
outrage
relate
cult?
because I
Okay.
have friends,
He's part of the circle.
but those who don't have friends, it's pretty sad. But I think another question to that is, do they really have to know at the same time that like a certain group of people know? So yeah.
Just to add to that,
I think. Okay, go go go.
yeah, that falls into one of the things that you don't need to know right away. You're gonna know either way. But when something important happens, something relating to your life as a student directly, that's something you should know right away. And the longer they wait to say it, the worse it is. Like it affects you directly. Because either way, these people are elected. You finding out today or tomorrow won't make that much of a difference. You're gonna know either way, and it's not gonna danger your life as a student very much, unless you really really want to know. But it's not gonna hurt you. So I think that's fine.
If I
Okay.
may add to
Go
Billy's
ahead.
point, I want to defend you because it seems like you're alone in this. So
Thank you.
um
I have to do it. I have to do
no
it.
no
I saw the view.
I feel
For
like
the
Billy's
center.
arguments for transparency have merit, you know. Um the problem kasi is that the less people know, the more likely they are to come up with convoluted explanations on why things happen the way they do. Just go to Freedom Wall and you'll see the number of conspiracy theories that have popped up. And when you have something as controversial as this issue, people are going to view it very differently. For some people, it may not be important. Some people may not even care. But some people find it extremely important, which is why I find Java's argument na only things that are really important for the student body need transparency. But that raises a second question. What's important for the student body if it differs from person to person? So the problem then is that if, for example, these people who are in power, who know what's going on, don't tell the rest of the student body what's going on, there's this sentiment that we're being kept out, that, we're being sidelined from the decision making process, and therefore this becomes a USG that doesn't represent us at all. Because the assumption being that student interest is in that we want to know. Of course, I don't ascribe to that, but Billy, I think that's what you're saying. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, you framed it very well.
It
You
ties
guys
back to
would
your
need
first
to
point,
attend
though.
parties.
Okay,
It
but like I
it
can
ties
say
back
that.
to your first question.
All right, so we need
Okay,
some
but
level
then
of
if
yeah,
they okay,
yeah. But then if
Eh,
but then
Who the
if
hell was
they do
talking?
have the information, what then? What they like? Okay, here's the all the info. What then?
then I think people won't think the USG is trash anymore. Why? Because they know exactly what's going on. They know the limitations of the USG, and they know why and how this particular mysterious event
yeah.
happened.
No,
Right?
it's just I think
How
it's just
sure
gonna
are
let
you
them
that
know.
they're gonna think that?
Yeah, I think they're just gonna think that USG is trash sooner, and they're gonna know why it's trash, and
Yeah.
then that's
Okay,
gonna
hold on.
change.
I think that okay, you can't really avoid criticism on either side, or like on any paradigm. But I think that it lessens the idea that the USG is doing nothing. Like if you tell them what's going on exactly, because not only does it keep people updated on their projects, but it also helps student engagement. Because at least, even if okay, some of them might not really care, but there might be people who are pushed to care because you're finally informing them about what's going on, so they have the incentive to like, oh, tune in. And maybe then when the next USG elections come or whatever, people could be more engaged in saying that, oh, this didn't happen last year, blah 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 blah. Or like if they open a forum or something, oh, this didn't happen last year, like is there any updates to this project, etc. There's more possibility for people to actually speak up about it, and for them to connect, because like, yeah.
Forum shout out to
Another
Bolo 6. Pass me the Bolo.
another argument for transparency is that it's a
Solid
wonderful
ball.
political move to preempt discontent. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
If you start telling people the information that's gonna happen, they're not really gonna have anything to complain about.
Right?
You can just
Exactly.
say na,
So people
"Oh,
want
we
the news.
already told you this information. What are you complaining about?"
Exactly. All right. So I feel like we've said enough regarding this issue, right? So we've seen one side of it. I
30
wanna
minutes in this
bring
issue.
us to like the justification for the resignation. It's like we went so far away. But like, okay, justification for the okay. This is coming from all right. So basically she released a statement explaining why she resigned, right? So I feel like it's fair to her to hear her side. So most of the speech is about up apologizing to the people that she disappointed, and like thanking people who helped her on the way, which I feel like it should be said because it's hard to get someone elected in the first place, right? But I want to focus on this reasoning. These are the two reasons that she gave for her resignation, right? So hence my first reason for resignation is that I fundamentally disagree with the direction of the USG for AY 2020-2021. Their decision to elect someone else as president proves that they do not have confidence in the vision I offer and campaigned for. While I respect their right to differ, I cannot serve effectively in my vision if my vision completely diverges from that of my colleagues. It is my firm belief that the USG moves as one. It would be a disservice to the institution if the captain and all the other officers move in one direction while a senior officer rows the other way. If the cost of unity entails giving a position I fought hard to earn, then I'm willing to pay that price. My second reason is that I cannot serve in a position that renders my platform and competencies useless. It is no secret that I campaigned and won on a platform that focuses on building on the successes of the previous administration and strengthening the USG as an institution. This was my contract with the voters who trusted in me and something that I could only credibly accomplish under the office of the president. It may be argued that an officer with any position can still pursue projects or policies beyond their mandate, but it will be unjust to my constituents if I occupy a seat without being able to fully deliver the mandate I was elected to do. So, first reason, right? She thinks she's a devil's advocate who would like weigh everyone down because her view differs from everyone else because she wasn't elected president, right? The second reason is that it's unfair to hold a different position because then that position could have gone to someone else who may have made a better use of it, right? So basically, those are the two reasons that she gave for like for resigning. Okay, first question: do any of you think that these reasons are not necessarily fair, or like it shouldn't be a reason for resignation? Okay, go
That's
Java.
really good.
I think the fundamental role of being a representative is to represent, and even you're even representing the people who didn't vote for you because they're all in your school. So even before your platforms, you're the voice of the people. If your school has a problem, especially now that there's such a disparity, like you're going to have online classes, right? You're someone to communicate with the school. Leaving that responsibility because you're not able to do your platforms, I think like you're abandoning your primary role, which is to speak for the people who won't be able to be spoken for. And I don't think that these reasons justify leaving your even like forget the constituents. Think about the rest of the students, the whole school. Who's going to speak for them now that there is no representative? Who's going to talk to the school for you? I think that's something to think about.
Yeah, but like there is a way of getting that new person, right? We're gonna have special elections soon, like, diba? You get what I mean? So the argument about like the job being not done, it's not really, it's not really a reason because like someone will
Yeah, but
replace
she's
her.
not doing it.
No,
Yeah, but
no.
she's not gonna be the one doing it.
What I'm saying is that this is not justified to me because before you think about your platforms, you should think about your primary role, which is to represent the students. And
Yeah.
this whole action implies, or the way I interpret it, is that that individual might be more focused on achieving their own personal goals rather than representing the students, which is arguably the more important role. Because before you think about your platforms, think about students.
Does anyone else agree with that? Do you all agree with that? What
I'm
about the
going
view
to,
that?
yeah.
Okay, what about the
Yeah, I
view
can.
that?
um,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, speak
What?
first.
What? Okay. I'm gonna get so confused. Anyway, where were we? Okay. Yeah, it's not a reason. And okay, I think that when you go for USG, you have to come under the assumption, since you already had experience in it in the first place. I think you should have gone with the assumption that you aren't going to get your way. Like you aren't going to be able to finish or like push through with all your projects, all your platforms. I voted for you last year and I didn't see all your projects mechanized anyway. And I was expecting that maybe, maybe if we vote for her again, maybe she will mechanize some of those platforms regardless of what position she gets. And we didn't really see these things happen, or we didn't see these things into fruition because she says that she says that without the presidency she's not going to be able to deliver these things. And I think that ano bang natira sa kanya for what was left with her if she were to continue, maybe secretary work or etc. But I think that her platforms do coincide with some of the or like coincide with the position that she could have been given, or like even if it doesn't coincide with it, she could have pushed these projects, or like ask some of the other representatives to advocate for these things. Because after all, if it was like social political engagement or continuity or transparency, we don't think that you really need the presidency platform just for you to be able to focus on those things. I think those are things that you could also focus on if you get like the secretary position and whatever.
What
Yeah,
about the martyrdom argument? Oh, it's
Oh.
who else agrees?
I think
Drew.
it's a group work, and if you're not like, maybe, well, people will elect a leader, and then, but the leader isn't always the one who's like has all the ideas to put forward the project. You get it from also from your members. So just like, if you're not the leader but you have these ideas, you're still in the group work and you're supposed to make the dream work. So
Okay,
you just
wait.
forward
Based on
those,
that,
and then
right?
the leader can, make his or her own way to promote those projects and stuff.
Okay,
Parang,
based on that, right?
okay, siguro
That
lang.
it's a group work. It's a group work for USG, right? What about her martyrdom argument that I think I will weigh the group down. So therefore, for the benefit of everyone, I will step out of the office. Go ahead, Java. Go.
I think that martyrdom argument doesn't really work also, because even if she was she got the position of president, would that change the idea that the rest of them are going a different direction? Or would that imply that being president, she can make them all listen to her and then go the same direction? So I think that no matter what position you are, you're going to have to work with the same people. You're going to have to work together. Like it's the
Yeah,
same.
but like it's more like I realize that the group doesn't agree with me. Therefore, I shouldn't even be here, even in the position of president. Like the fact that she wasn't elected as president told her that
Ah,
everyone
okay.
else disagrees with me. Therefore, I'm weighing everyone down. I will step out and let someone have the seat.
I don't think
This
that's a valid
person.
argument to begin
Why?
with. Because if we think about it, the opposition in the Philippine Senate exists, and even if not everyone likes them or like listens to them, they have a valid place in society. The point is, if you have a dissenting opinion, all the more you're needed there, because you represent some sector of society that needs representation. So if they don't agree with you, so be it. Anyone don't agree with me, but the point is, in principle, I was able to deliver the message of the people who aren't being heard.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Java was blown
Okay,
away. Yes.
actually makes sense. Does anyone
Calm
have
down,
any
man.
other
You look like you're about to
about
explode.
Hi, so yeah, follower vlog, by the way.
It's just
So,
right?
yeah,
Like
We're friendly. Hi.
yeah, we're
right.
friendly.
Shout out to our followers. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meron
Okay.
mo ba na shout out? Okay.
Okay. I
Stalking.
ran out of screenshots, right? But I want to move us to what does this mean for the student body, right? Okay. Now we need to have special election. We've already appointed an SCM rep. Like, what do you think would be the difference now if she resigned and if she did not resign? It's like, can you compare the two worlds? Like, oh, do you think it's better that she resigned, or was it better that she didn't resign? Would it be better if she didn't resign? Christopher.
Um, I think that I wanna echo Java's statement earlier that she was already working in a context where everyone basically disagreed with her. Let's run on the assumption that she does win. And these individuals immediately concede that okay, she's going to be calling the shots. We're going to echo whatever she says. I think that if we do get that kind of uh, USG, it'll be a very dysfunctional one because what's going to end up happening is that we're only going to be getting one representative's voice in that entire chamber that actually has the capacity to actually achieve anything. On the other hand, that also assumes that she's not going to be willing to cooperate with these individuals, and I am in no position to make such judgments about her character. But let's go on the other side and assume that, and run with this with our current scenario where we don't have an SLG representative. Common Protocol states that we're going to have a special election. If we again fail to have another representative, we're going to invoke Executive Order number 1, and we're going to pick a representative from Polis. So there's a net, but again, there's going to be a lot of discontent about that. There's a safety net.
Okay, so if ever we're gonna have a new SLG rep, like we're gonna have a new SLG rep, because like I think the amendment still applies. Please tell me the amendment still applies because it would be unfair for the person following her. Uh, what do you think
That's temporary.
the next candidate should keep in mind? Java. Oh wait, no, Denise, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, this is just not this is not for the candidate, but maybe this is like the implication of running after all that. I guess there's going to be more of pressure on that candidate to be able to deliver over and above than what you normally expect. So, aside from the platforms or projects being good, that candidate also has to kind of promise that um, he or she or they will accept that position that's like left vacant, which is the secretary, right? And I guess also there's a presupposition that I mean it's going to be inevitable that that candidate is going to be compared to the previous candidate, and if she is indeed raising the banner that she's competent, like even to the extent of being president over anyone else in the board, um probably the competency of that next candidate will also be questioned. So I think the main
I'm
impact of that is just
Yeah,
that
go.
that candidate, um I think like societal perception on that candidate will be quite of much more of a burden. I wouldn't say it's unfair, but it's going to be a definitely a heavier burden for that candidate.
My concern at this point is the precedents this set for future USG officers, because her actions have proven that if you don't want the USG position, you can opt out. Granted, you're gonna have to deal with the social backlash, but that's the point. You can back out. You can completely uh, put everyone in this position of inconvenience at a whim, basically, if you want to, as a USG representative. And
Yeah.
that's a very concerning possibility that I hope will not take root in our university student politics culture in our university. But only time will tell if that actually happens.
Well, I don't think it's likely to happen. Like, it's a lot of effort to try to run. So I'm not really concerned about that. But,
Okay.
it's
Will someone run?
oh yeah,
Hopefully.
But that's the question. I
Hopefully
feel like
someone will run.
That's
like
also
We
another
have
question.
yeah,
candidates.
one of the issues that we have with USG and all the things is really the voting and the people. It's really hard to get a position na nga. And then I mean, and given this situation, they had to do 50% na lang instead of 75, and then even with that, they barely got a candidate. But then, and then it was just the position was just relinquished. So I think it's much harder to get another person in that position. I mean, given that.
I think that issue we tackled in the previous episode. So everyone check out the last episode.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, it basically based on that on that issue, we sort of kind of came into a consensus that like the USG has to be, I would say, useful in a sense that, well, there should be more power given to them, one, and then the other thing is like they should be more reflective of the student interest, something like that. They should be useful for the students in general. Yeah. So yeah, I would agree that it's a much more difficult thing to get a USG candidate now that like this happened. But like to the point of like why this protest basically of happened, like using a resignation to uphold some a value. I think it was like integrity or something because of like trapo or like whatever allegations there was. I feel like there's more harm than good that was done by this form of protest, and I would suggest like future future USG officers or like the SLG rep, if ever the SLG rep will be selected during the special elections. To I feel like maybe try to uphold the values through the programs rather than use of protest, especially during the time of pandemic. Because like what was pointed out by Comelec when they justified the removal of the quota, we desperately need representatives. Yes.
Ban.
So Vance, do you want to add anything?
Add
Threw
Nagalit
you
na
under
si
the
Vance
bus. I'm
eh.
sorry.
or improvements, like in general, or
Yeah. It's suggestion for the
Well,
next
for like
maybe
the
for
next
the
election.
candidates, the voters, maybe.
Hmm. Well, yeah, aside from like the
please,
term limits
please.
thing I have in mind, don't worry, I'm not gonna scream. Okay, I'm not gonna set anything on fire. Don't worry, Frisker. God, I'm sorry, okay, but I'm a disappointed constituent. That's all I am. But the point here is simple. I think that if there are any amendments to be made, I really do think it has something to do with term limits for these candidates, but also for voters. I don't think it's really going to be justified that these people have like a minimum quota just for them to have a representative, because I do think that it does encourage the apathetic nature of the student politics we have. I think that it was disappointing to hear na they lessened the quota just for us to have a representative, and I don't think it should happen even at the context of a pandemic. All the more our student leaders needed at this time, because we are having a hard time trying to attach ourselves to academics because COVID. We have more important things other than like I don't know, thinking of like a political philosopher or maybe some random math problem. That's not necessarily what we have in mind during these days. And yeah, so I think that in order to engage these students, all the more should you not lessen the quota. All the more you should find ways to engage these students, and that's not going to happen when you're taking more power from them, or like when you're taking when you're undermining their politics to this extent na, oh, just because we kind of need someone, di bale na kung napakarami nung nag-abstain, or like di bale na kung konti lang yung bumoto, as long as we have someone there. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't really expect too much. I mean, I understand if the reasons behind your resignation would have been the idea that a lot of people did not have confidence in you. That would have been great. But hearing the statement was pretty appalling, pretty disappointing on SLG's end. But that's
Okay.
just
So
me.
Anything
I
else
don't.
anyone wants to add to this like entire
Can
discussion?
yeah,
Yes,
can
go ahead.
I like add like something?
Go
I
ahead.
just thought of like a metaphorical thing. You know how like the school logo is a ship, right? It's a ship, no? Um, and okay, let's compare that to USG. So
Still
um
think.
say that the USG is a ship. How do you know that the ship is working if you don't put weight on it? Who's gonna see if there are holes? So like, why are you so afraid that you're a dissenting officer, or like that? Like, like in the bit, there's always gonna be a dissenting chair. Um, like,
Yeah, okay.
see if it floats. Yeah, right? Do you get
Yeah.
me? Like, I don't know. Parang
All
it's
right.
just so it's hard to
All right.
fathom.
Okay, I think I get what Drew is trying to say, right? So, in conclusion, I want to say that we generally want to encourage diversity of ideas. That's actually why we have this like DR5. And even though we don't believe a lot of the things that we defended, as long as they make sense, we actually delivered them, right? Yeah, because someone needs to say something that like other people won't say, right? And then only through that we can analyze whether something has value or not. So if you're someone who goes against the flow, then I think all the more you should stay. So with that, I want to thank everyone who's here tonight. I want to thank Java, Vance, Not Drew, Christopher, and Denise for like speaking for today. This is our very first live. If you like our discussions, you should check out all the other episodes that we have.
I'm gonna say like
We
and
had
subscribe. I'm gonna
we have
try.
shit production value, but like the content is like up according to the reviews. Thank you very much for our viewers tonight. Please like, share, whatever those other
Oh dear God,
Instagram.
she he did it.
Please do it. We also want views. Thank you very much.
You should
Right,
also
this is
comment because
DR5.
Please
we
vote.
value
Next
this course.
election, please.
Okay,
I
bye
don't want
guys.
another special
Yeah,
Bye,
election.
and if you don't agree with
Why?
the elections, you can always abstain, guys. Actively abstain if you don't want the candidate. Okay, please vote.
Just do what you
Thank
want.
you.
So yeah,